Hey gang, and welcome back. These videos are brought to you by Card Conduit, the best place to sell your unused collection fast and easily. 401 Games, Canada's top shop for all your hobby and TCG needs. Dragon Shield, the strongest sleeves for your strongest decks. And Moxfield, the easiest way to store and share your deck lists. Kuzno wins the die roll and starts us off. He draws and plays a plateau for his first land. Desmond's got an island for turn, and he taps it for a realm right, naming Swamp as it comes in. He passes to Eric after that. Eric's turn has an exotic orchard, and he passes to me. I draw, play a swamp, and pass. During my end step, Eric cycles his Ash Barrens, going to find a forest. Kuzno draws, plays a polluted delta, and sacrifices it, losing 1 to find scrubland. He then has enough for Lotho and passes to Desmond. Desmond's turn has him playing a swamp, and we see the first zombie from his deck with a Crypt Breaker. Eric's got a forest, and he casts a Grim Flare. I play a swamp and pay 2 for a Night's Whisper, drawing 2 and losing 2. Kuzno's got a command tower for turn, and casts Liliana the Last Hope. He upticks her to take out the realm right, and passes after that. Desmond draws and plays an island, and then casts the newly printed legendary zombie, Zul Ashur, and passes. Eric draws, and goes straight to combat, swinging the Grim Flare at Kuzno. Kuzno doesn't block, and takes the hit, which has Eric surveilling 3, putting all 3 of them into his graveyard to help with his delirium. In his second main phase, Eric then plays an Old Growth Grove, and once that's out, casts an Arcane Signet. I've got a Plains return, and I cast Joe Grant and pass. Kuzno's turn has a Phyrexian Tower coming into play, and he also casts an Arcane Signet. He then plays a Roaring Furnace, losing a life and making a treasure from Lotho's trigger. He then uses a Furnace to shoot the Grim Flare. Unfortunately, it still lives, so Kuzno upticks Liliana to finish it off. With nothing else, he passes. Desmond plays a Soul Ring for turn, and then activates the Crypt Breaker, discarding an Undead War Chief and makes a zombie token. He passes to Eric after that. Eric plays a Grim Backwoods as his land for turn, and pays 2 colorless for a Mind Stone. He then plays out Vraska, Golgari Queen, and once the Planeswalker is out, down ticks her to take out Liliana. I draw, play a swamp, and I go to combat. I swing Joe Grant at Eric, dealing 3 and passing. Kuzno's turn has a Commander Sphere coming in, and he then unlocks Steaming Sauna. He then moves to his end step, and gets to draw a card from the Sauna trigger. Desmond plays a swamp and uses Zul Ashur to be able to cast Undead Warchief from his graveyard. Going to combat, he hits Eric for 4 with his zombie token. He then passes after that. Eric's main phase has a Deluge of Doom hitting the stack. And as I have first priority, I respond by cycling a Cyber Ship thanks to Joe Grant's ability to draw a card and put it to the graveyard. Kuzno has no response, but Desmond does with a counterspell to counter it. Eric then follows up with a Kadama's Reach, triggering Kuzno's Lotho, and he loses 1 and gets a treasure token, while Eric goes to find a forest. Eric then wraps things up by upticking Vraska, sacrificing his Mind Stone and drawing a card and passing. I play a Carrion Feeder, and then cast Greasefang in my main phase. I go to combat, and bring back the Cyber Ship with Greasefang's ability, and then tap Greasefang to crew it up. I then swing the Cyber Ship as Greasefang's given it haste, and it deals 8 to Desmond, and I get to exile his top 2 cards face down as Cybermen. I then move to my second main phase, and sacrifice the Cyber Ship to Carrion Feeder so it goes back to my graveyard. Kuzno draws and plays a Diabolic Tutor, tutoring for a card, which is very likely to be this next card, which is Diata. down-ticking her and hitting no legendaries, so he makes 4 treasures. And he then casts Baird, and with nothing else, moves to his end step. This lets him draw a card from the Steaming Sauna. Desmond draws, and plays the Scarab God in his main phase, and then goes to combat. He sends the zombie token at me, and I take the hit for 4, and Desmond then passes. Eric's main phase has him casting his commander, which is Rendmaw, and as it comes in, makes a tapped goaded bird for everyone. He then plays a Vault of Whisper, which triggers Rendmaw, making everyone another tapped goaded bird. Eric then follows up with a Twitching Doll, making yet another bird for the entire table. And once the doll's out, Eric then upticks Vraska, sacrificing one of his newly made bird tokens to draw a card, and then passes to me. I untap and draw for turn, playing a Plains and then going to combat. Greasefang triggers, and I get back my cyber ship again, and crew it up. I then swing it at Eric, and 2 birds go at Kuzno, and 1 goes at Desmond. No one blocks, and with Eric taking the 8 from the cyber ship, I exile his top 2 cards as Cybermen. Once more I move to my second main phase, and sacrifice the cyber ship to the Carrion Feeder, so it goes back to my graveyard, and I pass turn after that. Kuzno's land for turn is an Urza Saga, and he then upticks Diata and targets Baird. This grants him keyword soup, and he moves to combat. He swings 2 of his bird tokens at Desmond, and 1 and Baird go at me. I block Baird with a Cyberman token, and then sacrifice it to the Carrion Feeder to prevent him from gaining life, while Desmond and I then take the hit from the Flyers. In his post-combat main phase, Kuzno then casts Breya, making 2 Thopters as she comes in, and passing. Desmond's upkeep has the Scarab God triggering, and he drains us for 4 and scries 4, and then draws for turn. He plays a Swamp, and we then see one of the coolest cards recently printed with Breach the Multiverse. This has everyone milling their top 10, and Desmond then gets to steal Lord of the Accursed, King Makar, Narset of the Ancient Way, and Overlord of the Baelmerk, which in turn gets Sir Conrad to Desmond's hand. Desmond then upticks Narset, gaining 2 life, but has no use for the mana. He just goes to combat after that, and swings his 3 birds at me for 6, which I take, and he passes after that. Eric draws but isn't happy with it, so he cycles a Tranquil Thicket to draw again. He then casts Perennial Behemoth, and makes a bird for everyone. Once more he upticks Vraska, this time sacrificing the Vault of Whisperers, and draws a card. Eric then plays a Dark Moss Bridge for turn, which makes everyone another bird. He follows up with a Golgari Signet, and then goes to combat. He swings the 2 birds at Desmond for 4, and then passes. During his end step, I cast Rowan's Grim Search, sacrificing a bird so it'll cast with Bargain. I look at my top 4 and put some back and bin some, and then lose 2 and draw 2. I draw and play a Bright Climb Pathway, paying 1 to cast a Soul Ring. I then play out a Cranial Plating, and cast a Smelting Vat before going to combat. Once more Greasefang brings back the cyber ship, and I tap her to crew it, and then send my birds and cyber ship at Desmond. He takes a total of 16, and I get his top 2 as Cybermen. I then spice things up by sacrificing the cyber ship to the vat as opposed to the Carrion Feeder, and after revealing my top 8, sadly only get to keep an Orzhov Signet. And during my end step, Kuzno activates Breya, sacrificing his Thopters, to take out the Twitching Doll. Kuzno draws, and in his main phase, puts a second lore counter onto the Urza Saga, and once more minuses Diata, this time keeping Vraska, Betrayal Sting, and making 3 more treasures. He then plays an island for turn, and he goes to combat, swinging 2 birds at Desmond and 2 birds at me. We both take our hit for 4, and after combat, Kuzno sacrifices another bird to the Phyrexian Tower to help cast a Triumphant Reckoning. This gets him back all of his artifacts and planeswalkers back, and Kuzno then gets to go and find a basic as the Mycosynth Wellspring has entered the battlefield, plus makes another Thopter token from Breya's Apprentice. Kuzno then downticks Kazmina to loot a card and make a 2/2 wizard token. He then downticks Diata again, revealing his top 4, keeping one of them, and making 3 treasure tokens. Kuzno then upticks Liliana and targets a bird, and follows up by casting Aminatu, and once she's out, downticks her to flicker Diata. He then once more uses Diata's minus ability, making a bunch of treasure tokens. Kuzno then passes, and Desmond taps 3 zombies to Cryptbreaker on the end step to draw a card and lose 1. Desmond's upkeep has the Scarab God triggering, draining his opponents for 5 and then scrying 5. He then draws for turn. He plays a swamp for turn and activates the Cryptbreaker, discarding Sir Conrad to make a zombie token. He then upticks Narset to gain 2 life, and follows up with a Death Baron, and then casts a Lich Knight's Conquest. He sacrifices 2 bird tokens, and gets back Sir Conrad and the Gleaming Overseer. He then goes to combat. Desmond swings his birds at me, and everything else goes at Eric. This has Desmond milling 4 from the Overlord, and he gets the Laboratory Maniac back, which, as it's gone from the graveyard back to his hand, triggers Sir Conrad and deals 1 to Desmond's opponents. Eric then moves to blocks, but still gets taken out, and Sir Conrad deals an extra 3 as the creatures are also dying. Desmond then passes, and seeing the line, Kuzno then sacrifices his artifacts to Breya to take out Desmond, and then take out me, and wins the game. Game review time. As I said, I'm trying to trim this down, so we're going to keep this short. This game was 53 minutes and 54 seconds, as you can see on the screen. I've also put up some relevant stats, and if there's anything you think I missed out on, please let me know in the comments below. Otherwise, I'd say the strongest card this game was probably Diata, as it gave him a bunch of treasures that he could use with Breya, but also helped fill up his hand and ramp him at the same time. And for the runner-up, I would say that it was Rendmaw. Generating all those birds that were forced to attack his opponents were great, and it really sped up the game, so I really enjoyed Eric's deck immensely. This video wouldn't be possible without the help from my sponsors, but it definitely wouldn't be possible without the help from you, the viewers, and my patrons. So I just want to say thank you for watching, and to remember, friends are just opponents you haven't eliminated yet.